Hey guys, Bass Addict and Opticast Pro staff, Matt Kalzewski. It's been a while since I've been able to reach out. I've actually been meaning to. I've had my AV equipment with me on the water, but each time I've been out pre-fishing, it's been raining. So here we are, but it comes with good timing. We just finished up our first tournament of the year, and I was fortunate enough to take first. So I was excited about that, starting off this year on a good foot. But with that said, I want to forward you guys how I managed to do that. And it wasn't anything necessarily fancy, special, whatever. It was just basic listening to the fish and listening to the ecosystem and paying attention to the changes that were happening to the lake. I had fished on this lake in a tournament before. I managed to finish third in that tournament. However, it was kind of like a best of the worst type scenario. First and second were far ahead of everyone else. So I remember what those anglers did. They were fishing in a particular area, and I knew I was going to fish that area. There's smallmouth on the lake, and they typically come from that area. So my goal was to figure out where the smallmouth were. 2 weeks prior, I had been ripping smallmouth off beds on a popular smallmouth lake here in Minnesota. So I knew that the smallmouth were starting to leave their beds, get into that post-spawn pattern. They're nomadic, so they're tough to find. But if you can get in the general area where they're starting to kind of school up and do their thing, it can pay dividends. So that was kind of my goal. Didn't manage to catch any smallmouth pre-fishing, but came across a 3.5 pound fish, which I knew that, okay, if I could find 5 of these, that would get me in the money. Now, I started fishing in areas where I had waypoints and stuff from before, but wasn't catching the quality of fish that I had just caught in oddly deep water. And after I had done that, I went to a different location that I know I'd had success in that depth before on the lake, and sure as heck I caught another decent 3-pound fish. So, okay, we had high water here this year. We had early ice out. Typically, second weekend in June, fish are kind of in that early post-spawn type mode, so they're really hard to find, really hard to pattern. Might not necessarily be schooling, kind of scattered at that point. But the fish seemed to be ahead of schedule this year, and they kept telling me that they were ahead of schedule. I was catching small males up in the shallows, was catching spawned out females kind of in the 4 to 8 depth range. So I just had to listen to the fish. Now, I was fishing in 16 to 22 feet of water. That is unheard of for this time of year to catch fish in that depth. We have high water. You wouldn't think that with high water levels, there would be lots of cover near the shore that wouldn't otherwise be there in a low water level setting. So that's where I started. But it was actually counterintuitive because the lake floor composition didn't change because the water was higher. Yeah, the vegetation, the rate at which it was growing, and kind of how deep it would grow, kind of changed. But with higher water, the water also got a little bit diluted, so it was clearer, and the weed line just grew out kind of to where it normally does. It just happened to be a little bit deeper. So I just paid attention to the fish, listened to what they were telling me, and they were telling me to fish deep. Sure as heck, found a spot where some winning class fish were starting to school. Had a winning bag in the boat in the first 45 minutes, and the rest is history, right? I reiterate all the time to people, it's not so much what you're fishing with as much as it is where and how. Where, self-explanatory. How pertains more to your speed and your presentation. And the what, of course, color, size, brand of bait, whatever. That's kind of on the bottom of the totem pole. Where 90% of the fish are in 10% of the water. It's a quote from a book. It's a really good book. The title and the author is escaping me. I'll put it on the bottom, the description of this video. But highly recommend it. Easy read, and it's kind of cool. I think he's an engineer or a stat analysis guy that really likes chasing trophy bass, and he either warrants or busts myths in association with lineages or adages or things that anglers kind of live and fish by, and puts them to the test from a statistical analysis standpoint. So it's pretty cool, worth the read. But after I finished first in this past tournament here, I told people what I'd done, to claim the title, and they were baffled when I told them all I fished with was one thing all day long, and it was just this: your standard Berkeley powder bait 7-inch black power worm on a Gamakatsu 4/0 offset worm hook. That's it. And I was dead sticking. Just throwing it out there, make sure I had good tension on my line and let it sit. And the reason why I do that is it was kind of a post front pattern. And typically, that's one of my first go-tos, is putting on a worm, dark color, and just let it sit. Yeah, you can, if you know there's fish in a particular area and they're inactive, you can bust them by power fishing, snapping the tube jig or running certain crankbaits or whatever. But typically in post-run patterns, I like to get on the bottom and slow down. Some of my smallest bites were my biggest fish this past tournament. So try that next time you're in a post-run situation as well. Dead sticking worms, one of my favorite. The other thing too, I've kind of mentioned some of this stuff before in my fish care videos, which you should definitely reference. But in this last tournament, I had not been paying attention to my fish as much as I should have. I took a look and I had two fish that were kind of like on the verge of, struggling, right? And kind of freaked out, but I was able to get them right. And how I did that was hitting them with a little TH Marine G juice. This stuff does wonders. And applying weights. If you guys don't have dorsal weights, you need these. Put them on their lower dorsal fin or whatever, just to keep them upright so they don't have to expend energy doing so themselves. And then just regulating the water temp, keeping that recirc on all the time, adding fresh water when you can. And I actually, in our cooler, I always fill the same Gatorades that I freeze or whatever, 3/4 worth of water. And by the time those kind of halfway thaw, I might throw them in the live well. Not necessarily to nuke it cold, but just kind of keep it colder, easier type thing. So hopefully a couple of those things help you guys optimize every cast and put more meat on the deck.